The first thing I heard was laughter. Not happy laughter. The kind that makes your stomach tighten before you even know why. I had just stepped through the front door of a house I'd spent 6 years saving for, a beautiful 2-story colonial in Bellevue, Washington. White brick, black shutters, a wraparound porch, and a backyard my mom had fallen in love with the second she saw it. It had cost me just over $600,000. Every payment, every tax bill, every repair, every piece of furniture. Mine. I hadn't bought it as an investment. I'd bought it because my mother deserved one peaceful chapter in her life. She had spent 33 years cleaning other people's homes after my father died when I was 12. She worked double shifts, skipped meals so my brother and I could eat, and somehow still found enough energy to smile whenever we walked through the front door. She never complained. Not once. Which is exactly why hearing my sister-in-law call her the maid inside that house felt like someone had punched me in the chest. I hadn't announced I was coming over. I wanted to surprise Mom with the custom rocking chair she'd admired at a furniture store the month before. Instead, I stopped dead in the hallway. Voices drifted from the dining room. Honestly, I keep forgetting she actually lives here. That was Melissa, my older brother Ryan's wife. Someone giggled. Then Melissa continued, I swear, every time she starts wiping down the kitchen counters, she looks exactly like the maid. More laughter. And honestly, Melissa said, if she's going to act like one, she shouldn't mind being called one. Another woman asked quietly, isn't this her house? Melissa snorted. No, Ryan's family owns it. I gripped the rocking chair, so hard my fingers hurt. Then she added the sentence I'll never forget. Without us, she'd probably still be scrubbing toilets somewhere. Silence. Not from them. From me. Everything inside me went completely still. Because every word she'd just spoken was a lie. Ryan hadn't paid $1 toward this house. Melissa hadn't either. The only reason either of them had ever stepped inside was because my mother refused to stop believing family should always be welcome. I rounded the corner before I had time to think. The room froze. Melissa's smile disappeared. Ryan looked up from his coffee. Mom stood beside the dining table with a serving tray in her hands. She looked embarrassed. Embarrassed. In her own home. I didn't realize, I said calmly, that we had hired a maid. Nobody answered. Melissa recovered first. Oh. She forced a smile. Daniel. We were just joking. I looked at my mother. She wouldn't meet my eyes. That hurt more than anything Melissa had said. Mom. She quietly set the tray down. It's okay. No. It wasn't. I walked farther into the room. Melissa crossed her arms. You don't have to make such a big deal out of this. I looked at her. You're right. She smiled. I don't. Then I pointed toward the front door. You can leave. The smile vanished. What? You heard me. Ryan stood up. Come on, Dan. No. It's just a misunderstanding. No. Melissa laughed nervously. You're seriously kicking us out over one joke? I stared at her. You insulted the woman who sacrificed her entire life for this family. She rolled her eyes. Oh my God. Ryan sighed. Daniel, stop acting like this. I looked at him. Did you know? His face changed. Knew what? That your wife calls Mom the maid. He hesitated. That was enough. You knew. It's not like that. No. He rubbed his forehead. Melissa has a weird sense of humor. Mom stepped between us. Please. Her voice shook. I don't want everyone fighting. That was exactly who she was. Always trying to keep peace. Even when she was the one getting hurt. I took a slow breath. I'm not fighting. I looked back at Melissa. I'm setting a boundary. She scoffed. Oh, please. You don't disrespect my mother. This isn't even your business. I almost laughed. My business. She looked confused. Yes. I nodded slowly. It is. Ryan stepped forward. Daniel. You know what? I interrupted. I'll come back another day. I picked up the rocking chair, walked toward the front door, and left. I didn't trust myself to stay another minute. People think anger feels hot. Mine didn't. Mine felt cold. Ice cold. By the time I reached my truck, my hands were shaking. Not because Melissa had insulted Mom. Because Mom had looked like she'd accepted it. That image refused to leave my head. I drove for nearly an hour before pulling into a small park overlooking Lake Washington. The rocking chair was still strapped into the truck bed. I stared at the water until my phone rang. Mom. I answered immediately. Hi. I'm sorry. Those were the first words she said. I closed my eyes. Mom. I shouldn't have let it become awkward. You didn't. I know Melissa can be strong. Strong. That was the word she chose. I don't care about what she called me. I do. Silence. Then she sighed. I just don't want to lose Ryan. There it was. The truth. She'd spent years protecting him. Even now, Ryan had always been different from me. He was charming. Funny. The kind of person everyone liked immediately. But responsibility? That was another story. He bounced from job to job, started businesses that failed, borrowed money, forgot to pay it back, made promises he couldn't keep. Mom always believed he'd eventually figure life out. I stopped believing that years ago. Still, he was my brother. So whenever Mom asked me to help him, I usually did, until Melissa entered the picture. Within 6 months, Ryan had changed. Every family dinner became about appearances. Designer clothes they couldn't afford. Luxury vacations paid for with credit cards. Talking about networking while asking Mom if she could babysit for free. Melissa loved looking successful. Actually becoming successful, that interested her much less. The more I thought about it, the more pieces started fitting together. Little comments, little looks, the way she'd always treated Mom like staff instead of family. Had this been happening for years? How much had Mom hidden from me? 3 days later I got my answer. I came by the house after work carrying groceries. Mom wasn't in the kitchen. I found her outside. She was kneeling in the flower beds, hands covered in dirt, planting roses. She smiled when she saw me. You came. I brought dinner. Wonderful. Then I noticed a bruise. Dark purple. Along her forearm. What happened? She instinctively covered it. Oh. I bumped into the pantry door. Liar. She looked away. I hadn't called her that since I was 16. She knew I knew. Finally she whispered. It isn't important. I knelt beside her. It is to me. She hesitated, then sighed. Melissa was trying to carry one of the storage boxes downstairs. And I offered to help. What happened? Mom swallowed. She thought I dropped one of her decorations. I stared. So. She grabbed my arm. My heartbeat slowed. Dangerously slow. She grabbed you. It wasn't that hard. I looked directly at the bruise. It absolutely was. Ryan saw. My stomach dropped. What did he do? Mom didn't answer. She didn't have to. Nothing. He had done absolutely nothing. That night I couldn't sleep. Instead, I opened the folder on my laptop labeled Maple Ridge House. Every receipt, every payment, every insurance document, every property tax statement, every maintenance invoice. My name appeared on every single one. Because despite what everyone assumed, I had never transferred ownership. Not to Mom. Not to Ryan. Not to anyone. The house legally belonged to me. Mom had lifetime permission to live there. That was all. I'd structured it that way after talking with an attorney years earlier. Mostly for tax reasons. But also because Mom had worried Ryan might someday pressure her into changing her will. Back then I thought she was overthinking. Now, I wasn't so sure. I stared at the deed for a long time. Then another memory surfaced. 2 weeks earlier, Ryan had casually asked whether I'd ever planned to put the house fully in Mom's name. At the time I'd brushed it off. Now it sounded different. Very different. Almost like he was checking something. Testing the waters. A chill ran down my spine. Maybe this wasn't just about disrespect. Maybe there was something else going on. Something I hadn't seen yet. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Need to talk. It's important. 5 minutes later, another message appeared. Melissa thinks you owe her an apology. I read it twice. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because for the first time, I realized something that changed everything. They honestly believed they were the victims. And they had absolutely no idea what I was about to pull out of my briefcase when we finally sat down together. Ryan's text sat on my phone for almost an hour before I answered. Me tomorrow. My office. 10 o'clock. Come alone. 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Then disappeared. A minute later, another message came through. Ryan, Melissa's coming too. I stared at the screen. Me, that's your decision. If she came, she would hear everything herself. The next morning, I arrived early. My office overlooked downtown Bellevue. It wasn't flashy, but it reflected the life I'd built from years of long hours and careful decisions. A framed photo of Mom and me from the day we closed on her house sat on the corner of my desk. She was crying in that picture, not because of the house, because she kept saying she never imagined she'd have a place that no landlord could take away. At least, that's what she believed. The truth was different. Legally, I owned it. Emotionally, it was hers. Those two things weren't the same. At exactly 10 o'clock, Ryan and Melissa walked in. Melissa was dressed like she was attending a business meeting. Designer handbag, oversized sunglasses pushed onto her head, expensive perfume filling the room before she even sat down. Ryan looked exhausted. Dark circles. Wrinkled shirt. He hadn't been sleeping well. Neither had I. Melissa spoke first. So, she crossed one leg over the other. Are we done being dramatic? I folded my hands on the desk. I invited Ryan. She smiled tightly. And I'm his wife. I noticed. Ryan shifted uncomfortably. Can we just settle this? That's why you're here. Melissa leaned forward. Good. You owe me an apology. I blinked. I do. You embarrassed me. I almost asked if she was serious. Then I realized she absolutely was. You threw us out in front of my friends. You insulted my mother. It was a joke. You've used that excuse 3 times. She shrugged. Because it's true. Ryan finally spoke. Dan. No. I looked directly at him. I'm only asking one question. He nodded. When Melissa grabbed Mom's arm, his expression froze. Why didn't you stop her? Silence. Melissa answered instead. Oh my God. She barely touched her. I opened a folder. Without saying a word, I slid a printed photograph across the desk. Mom's bruise. Taken the night she'd shown me. Melissa's face changed. Ryan looked away. You call that barely touching her? Melissa folded her arms. She's older. Older people bruise, easily. For a second, I genuinely wondered if she believed the words coming out of her mouth. Ryan rubbed his temples. Melissa! What? She looked at him. I didn't hit her. No. I said quietly. You just grabbed a 65-year-old widow hard enough to leave fingerprints. The room went silent. Ryan exhaled. I already told Mom I was sorry. I stared at him. You apologized? Yes. What did you apologize for? He hesitated. I should have stepped in. Finally. Some honesty. Melissa rolled her eyes. This is ridiculous. No. I stood. This is accountability. She stood too. Fine. If that's how you want to play it. She pointed at me. You've always acted like you're better than everyone. I laughed once. No. You've just confused responsibility with arrogance. Ryan raised both hands. Can both of you stop? No. Melissa snapped. He thinks buying a house gives him control over everyone. The sentence hung in the air. Interesting. Very interesting. I tilted my head. What makes you think buying the house gives me control? She frowned. What? You just said it. I said you think that. No. You specifically mentioned buying the house. She glanced at Ryan, then back at me. I know you helped. Helped? That wasn't the word she'd almost used. She caught herself. Too late. You know more than you're pretending. Ryan swallowed. Melissa. She ignored him. I'm done talking. She grabbed her purse. We're leaving. Before they reached the door, I spoke again. Ryan. He stopped. If I were you. He looked back. I'd start asking why your wife suddenly cares so much about a house that isn't hers. For the first time all morning. Melissa looked nervous. 2 days later, Mom invited me over for dinner. Ryan and Melissa weren't there. Just the two of us. She made beef stew. My favorite since childhood. The house felt peaceful again. Almost. Halfway through dinner, Mom quietly asked, Did you and Ryan talk? We did. Did it help? No. She sighed. I wish things were different. So do I. After dinner, I helped her wash dishes. She handed me a towel. You know. She smiled softly. When you bought this house, I was scared. Why? I thought you'd resent spending so much money on me. I stopped drying the plate. I never regretted it. I know. She smiled. You've never made me feel guilty. Then her smile faded. But Ryan has. I slowly put the plate down. What do you mean? She hesitated. I shouldn't say. Mom. She looked at the sink instead of me. A few months ago, he asked whether I planned to leave the house to him. Every muscle in my body tightened. What did you tell him? I said it wasn't mine to leave. My heartbeat sped up. What did he say? He laughed. He said, technically, maybe not yet. Not yet. The same phrase echoed in my head. Not yet. What did that mean? I don't know. But Melissa smiled. Neither of them said another word. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something. So I called the attorney who had handled the purchase, Harold Benson. He answered on the second ring. Daniel, sorry to bother you. You never bother me. I need a favor. Go ahead. I want to know if anyone has recently tried to access documents regarding Mom's property. Silence. Then, as a matter of fact, my stomach dropped. There was an inquiry. When? About 3 weeks ago. Who? I can't disclose names. Attorney-client privilege. I understood. Can you tell me whether they claim to represent your mother? Another pause. Yes. My grip tightened around the phone. Were they authorized? No. I declined the request. That was enough. Someone had tried to obtain legal information about the house. Without telling me. Without telling Mom. The next morning, I drove to Mom's house earlier than usual. Her car was gone. She'd gone grocery shopping. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed something strange. Ryan's SUV. Why was he here? I parked quietly down the street and walked back. The front door wasn't fully closed. Voices drifted through the entryway. Ryan. Melissa. She'll sign eventually. That was Melissa. Ryan sounded uncertain. I don't know. She's stubborn. Melissa lowered her voice. Then stop asking. Just bring the papers. Papers? Ryan whispered something I couldn't hear. Then Melissa laughed. She's old. She trusts you. It'll take 5 minutes. Every instinct I had screamed that something was very wrong. I took one careful step closer. Ryan spoke again. What if Daniel finds out? Melissa answered immediately. He won't. He barely comes by. I felt something cold settle in my chest. So this wasn't about a joke anymore. This wasn't about hurt feelings. This was a plan. A deliberate one. Before I could hear anything else, tires crunched onto the driveway. Mom's car. Ryan looked through the window. She's back. Melissa grabbed a folder from the dining table, so quickly that several papers almost slipped out. I stepped away from the porch before anyone saw me. By the time Mom parked, I was walking up the driveway carrying a grocery bag I'd grabbed from my truck. She smiled. Oh, I didn't know you were coming. I thought I'd help. Ryan opened the front door. His face drained of color. Dan, what a surprise. Looks like we're all full of surprises today. Melissa forced another smile. We were just leaving. I looked at the folder clutched against her chest. Busy. Just helping your mother organize paperwork. Mom frowned. What paperwork? Melissa answered too quickly. Oh, nothing important. Mom looked confused. I didn't ask for help. Nobody spoke. For 3 long seconds. Then Melissa laughed awkwardly. I meant future paperwork. She practically dragged Ryan toward the door. As they walked past me, I caught a glimpse of a top page inside the folder. 1 line. That's all I needed to see. Quitclaim deed. My blood ran cold. They weren't just trying to disrespect my mother anymore. They were trying to take the house. And neither of them knew that the biggest obstacle standing between them and $600,000 wasn't my mother. It was me. The words quitclaim deed stayed burned into my mind the entire drive home. I'd seen enough real estate documents over the years to know exactly what one looked like. There was no innocent explanation. No misunderstanding. No harmless paperwork. Someone was preparing to transfer ownership, or at least trying to. The only question was how far Ryan and Melissa were willing to go. And that answer scared me more than I wanted to admit. I didn't confront them. Not yet. If they were planning something, the worst thing I could do was let them know I was onto them. Instead, I called Harold Benson again. Harold, I need another favor. I had a feeling you'd call. I saw a quitclaim deed in Melissa's hands. He was quiet for a moment. Daniel, if that's true, you need to be careful. I'm listening. People attempting property fraud often don't begin with forged signatures. They begin by convincing the owner to sign something they don't fully understand. I lean back in my chair. My mother trusts Ryan. I know. And that's exactly what worries me. That afternoon, I drove back to Mom's house. She was sitting on the back porch with a cup of tea, watching birds gather around the feeder I'd installed for her last Christmas. She smiled the moment she saw me. You've been coming by a lot lately. I like seeing you. She laughed softly. You always did know how to make me feel special. I sat beside her. Mom. She looked over. If Ryan ever asks you to sign anything. Her smile faded. Don't. I wasn't planning to. Promise me. She nodded. I promise. Then she hesitated. Can I ask you something? Of course. Are you afraid of your brother? That question caught me completely off guard. No. I'm afraid of what he's becoming. She looked down at her hands. I used to think he was just irresponsible. So did I. But lately, her voice cracked. I don't recognize him. Neither did I. 3 days passed. No calls. No texts. No visits from Ryan. It was almost too quiet. Then, on Friday evening, Mom called. She sounded nervous. Ryan invited me to lunch tomorrow. I stopped what I was doing. Where? A new Italian restaurant downtown. And Melissa? They'll both be there. A knot formed in my stomach. What time? 1 o'clock. I forced my voice to stay calm. Sounds nice. It does. Then she added something that made every alarm bell in my head go off. Ryan said he has some papers for me to look at. There it was. I kept my breathing steady. What kind of papers? He said they're about making things easier in the future. I closed my eyes. No. What? Don't sign anything. I already promised you. I know. But promise me again. She smiled gently. I promise. The next morning, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. I followed them. Not because I wanted to spy on my own brother. Because I wanted proof. The restaurant overlooked Lake Washington. Elegant. Quiet. Perfect for private conversations. I parked across the street where they couldn't see me. From there, I had a clear view through the front windows. Ryan arrived first. Melissa a few minutes later. Mom showed up exactly on time. She hugged Ryan. He hugged her back. For a moment, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined everything. Maybe this really was just lunch. Maybe. Melissa pulled a manila folder out of her handbag. My heart sank. The waiter served drinks. They talked for 20 minutes. Laughed. Smiled. Then, Ryan slid the folder across the table. Mom frowned. She didn't touch it. Ryan said something. Melissa pointed to a page. Mom slowly opened the folder. I couldn't hear a word they were saying, but I could read body language. Ryan leaned closer. Melissa smiled. Mom kept shaking her head. Then Ryan reached into his jacket and handed her a pen. She stared at it. Didn't move. Melissa's smile disappeared. Ryan spoke again. Longer this time. Mom looked down. She seemed hurt. Then something happened I will never forget. She pushed the pen back across the table. Ryan's shoulders slumped. Melissa threw both hands into the air. Even through the glass, I could tell she was furious. Mom stood. She picked up her purse. Ryan grabbed her wrist. Not violently, but firmly enough that she stopped walking. That was all I needed to see. I was out of my truck before I realized I'd opened the door. By the time I reached the restaurant entrance, Mom had pulled her hand free. Ryan and Melissa followed her outside. I crossed the street. Mom! All three of them turned. Ryan looked like he'd seen a ghost. Daniel, what are you doing here? I ignored him. Mom, are you okay? She nodded. I'm fine. Melissa folded her arms. Were you following us? I was making sure my mother wasn't being manipulated. Her face hardened. Manipulated? Ryan stepped between us. Dan, this isn't what it looks like. Really? I looked at the folder in his hand. Then show me. He hesitated. Melissa answered for him. It's private. I laughed once. Not anymore. She tightened her grip on the folder. You have no right. No right. I stepped closer. The house you're trying to steal belongs to me. Everything stopped. People walking past slowed down. Ryan froze. Melissa's face went completely pale. Mom stared at me. What? I looked at her. I'm sorry I never told you. The house is still legally in my name. She blinked several times. You bought it for me. I did. And you've always been the only person who truly owned it in every way that mattered. Tears filled her eyes. But legally, I kept the title. She whispered. Why? I looked at Ryan. Because I was afraid something like this might happen one day. Ryan couldn't even look at me. Melissa finally found her voice. That's ridiculous. Is it? I held out my hand. The folder? No. Last chance. She laughed bitterly. You can't make me. No. But I can call the police and report attempted real estate fraud. That got everyone's attention. Ryan turned toward her. Melissa! She glared at him. Don't. He lowered his head. Slowly, painfully, he took the folder out of her hands and handed it to me. I opened it. There it was. A quitclaim deed, prepared for Mom to sign, transferring any claimed interest in the property. Attached was another document naming Ryan as attorney-in-fact for future property matters. My jaw tightened. Melissa had gone much further than I'd imagined. I looked at Ryan. Did you know exactly what these papers were? He nodded. Barely. But. No. There isn't a but. Mom's voice trembled. You wanted me to sign this? Ryan started crying. Actually crying. I thought. What? We needed security. Melissa interrupted. It would have stayed in the family. I looked at her in disbelief. It already was. No. She snapped. It was yours. Finally. The truth. Not concern. Not inheritance. Not family. Ownership. Money. She wanted the house. Nothing else. Mom looked at Ryan with tears running down her face. I spent your entire childhood protecting you. Ryan couldn't answer. I believed everyone who said you'd mature. She shook her head slowly. I defended you. Every word sounded heavier than the last. But today, she wiped away another tear. You asked me to betray your brother. Ryan whispered. I'm sorry. No. She answered quietly. You're sorry you got caught. He closed his eyes. Because he knew she was right, I folded the documents and placed them back inside the folder. Then I reached into my briefcase. Melissa frowned. What now? I pulled out another folder. Thicker. Neater. Prepared days earlier. I hoped I'd never need these. Ryan looked confused. What are they? I met his eyes. Legal notices. For both of you. Melissa laughed. You can't be serious. I've already spoken with my attorney. Her smile slowly disappeared. I handed Ryan the envelope. Effective immediately. My voice stayed calm. Your permission to enter my property is revoked. Ryan looked stunned. You can't do that. I just did. I turned to Melissa. And if either of you steps onto that property again without my mother's invitation and my written permission. I paused. I'll have you removed for trespassing. Melissa opened her mouth. No words came out. For the first time since I'd met her, she had absolutely nothing to say. And deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because people willing to risk everything for $600,000 rarely walk away after failing once. The real battle was only beginning. For the first time in weeks, my mother slept through the night. I knew because she called me the next morning, not in tears, not whispering, not trying to smooth over another family argument. She sounded peaceful. Good morning, she said. Good morning, Mom. I made pancakes. I smiled. You made pancakes just to tell me? No. She laughed softly. I made them because I finally felt like cooking again. That sentence hit me harder than she realized. Somewhere along the way, the house I bought to give her peace had become a place where she felt she had to walk on eggshells. I hadn't protected her soon enough. I wasn't going to make that mistake again. Monday morning, Harold Benson called. I've reviewed everything. And the quitclaim deed wasn't filed. I let out a slow breath. Good. But there was always a but. Someone paid to have the documents professionally prepared. So this wasn't something they printed off the internet. No. They met with someone who believed they had authority to proceed. Can we find out who? We're trying. Even if nothing illegal happened, the paper trail matters. After we hung up, I sat staring out my office window. Ryan hadn't just made a bad decision. He'd taken deliberate steps. Appointments. Paperwork. Planning. This wasn't a moment of weakness. It was a choice. 3 days later, Mom called again. Ryan wants to come over. What did you tell him? I said I'd think about it. I drove to her house after work. She already had tea waiting. You don't have to answer today, I said. I know. But he's still my son. I understand. She looked at me carefully. Do you hate him? The question lingered between us. No. I hate what he's done. She nodded slowly. I've been praying he'd wake up. So have I. But waking up doesn't erase consequences. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I raised one son who always tried to fix everyone's problems. She smiled sadly. And another who always expected someone else to. Neither of us needed to say their names. The following Saturday, Ryan came alone. No Melissa. No expensive SUV. No designer clothes. Just jeans, a faded sweatshirt, and eyes that looked 10 years older. I stayed. Not because I wanted to. Because Mom asked me to. When Ryan stepped into the living room, he looked around like he'd never really seen the house before. His gaze settled on the family photos lining the fireplace. Pictures of birthdays, Christmas mornings, graduations, Dad holding both of us when we were little. He swallowed hard. I forgot how many memories are here. Mom quietly replied, the memories were always here. You stopped looking. He sat down. For almost a minute, nobody spoke. Finally, he looked at Mom. I'm sorry. She didn't answer. He looked at me. I know saying that isn't enough. No, it isn't. He nodded. I deserve that. Then he surprised me. I've moved out. Mom blinked. What? I left Melissa. Silence. He continued. I didn't leave because of the house. I left because I finally realized I'd become someone I don't even like. I studied his face. There was no anger. No excuses. Just exhaustion. I kept telling myself I was keeping the peace. He laughed bitterly. But I wasn't. I was choosing the easy path. He looked at Mom. And every time I stayed quiet, I was choosing against you. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I don't know if you'll ever forgive me. She answered honestly. I don't know either. He nodded. I understand. Over the next month, little pieces of the truth came out. Ryan admitted Melissa had been talking about the house for almost 2 years. At first, it sounded harmless. Your mom should simplify her estate. Then, she should transfer everything now. Eventually, if Daniel really cared about family, he'd put the house in everyone's name. Ryan resisted at first. Then he slowly gave in. Not because he wanted to hurt Mom. Because he convinced himself it was practical. That lie became easier to believe every time Melissa repeated it, until he couldn't tell the difference between practicality and greed. Melissa, however, never apologized. Instead, she hired an attorney. 2 weeks later, I received a letter claiming that Ryan had made substantial verbal contributions toward the property and deserved an ownership interest. Harold laughed when he read it. She's fishing. Any chance it works? He smiled. Not remotely. Every receipt, every mortgage payment, every tax bill, every insurance premium, every repair, every utility connected to ownership, all in my name. Ryan hadn't paid a single dollar. The claim disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived. A month later, I heard through a mutual friend that Melissa had filed for divorce. She blamed Ryan. Ryan blamed himself. For once, he wasn't wrong. Life slowly returned to normal. Mom planted more flowers. She joined a local gardening club. She started inviting neighbors over for coffee. The house finally became what it was always meant to be. A home, not a battlefield. One Saturday morning, I helped her build raised garden beds in the backyard. She stood back, hands on her hips, admiring the fresh cedar boxes. You know what I realized? What? This is the first spring I've actually enjoyed this yard. I looked around. The roses were blooming. Birds flitted between the trees. The porch swing moved gently in the breeze. She was right. Peace changes the way a place feels. About 6 months after everything happened, Ryan called. I found a job. Doing what? Project manager for a construction company. Steady work. Yeah, he laughed quietly. Turns out showing up every day is easier when you're not pretending to be someone else. I smiled despite myself. I'm glad. There was a pause. I don't expect things to go back to normal. They won't. I know. But maybe someday. We'll see. That was the most honest answer I could give him. Trust isn't rebuilt with words. It's rebuilt with time. On Mom's 66th birthday, the The whole backyard was filled with friends, neighbors, cousins, and people she'd met through church and her gardening club. The only empty chair belonged to my father. I knew Mom noticed it. So did I. As the sun began to set, everyone gathered around while she blew out the candles. Before anyone could cut the cake, she stood. "I want to say something." The yard became quiet. "When my husband died," she looked toward the sky for a moment, "I thought I had lost everything." Then she smiled at me. But I hadn't. I still had my sons. Her voice trembled. One lost his way. She glanced toward Ryan, who had quietly accepted an invitation to come alone. He lowered his head. The other spent years trying to carry more than any child should have to. She turned back to me. "When Daniel bought this house, I thought he gave me walls and a roof." She shook her head. "I was wrong. He gave me safety." She walked over and hugged me tightly. "And when that safety was threatened, he didn't protect a building. He protected me." There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard, not even Ryan's. That evening, after everyone had gone home, Mom and I sat on the porch in the rocking chair I'd finally been able to give her. The same chair I'd been carrying the day everything fell apart. She rocked gently while the crickets chirped in the distance. "You know," she said with a smile, "Melissa called me the maid." "I know." She looked around the house. "The funny thing is, I still clean every room." I laughed. "You do. But there's a difference now." "What difference?" She smiled the kind of smile I'd been hoping to see ever since Dad died. "A maid cleans someone else's house." She reached over and squeezed my hand. "I take care of my home." And in that quiet moment, watching the lights glow through the windows of the house she'd filled with love instead of fear, I realized something. The greatest revenge had never been humiliating Melissa. It hadn't been the legal notices. It hadn't been proving who owned the property. The greatest revenge was making sure the woman who had spent her life cleaning other people's homes would never again be made to feel like she belonged in someone else's. Because this house wasn't defined by the name on the deed. It was defined by the woman who turned it into a home. And no one would ever take that away from her.